Hey guys, Josh here today. We are here to talk about Formula 1, of course, and this new qualifying for 2016, of course, which is staying on for the Bahrain Grand Prix. Bit of controversy then once again in the world of Formula 1, of course, nothing new, but many fans, of course, outraged by this new qualifying system, this new elimination system. And, after we heard that it was going to be abolished and we're going to revert back to the, usual kind of, knockout system that we've been using since 2006, and that was going to be returning for Bahrain and indeed the rest of the season. It's now been confirmed we're actually going to be staying with this kind of elimination system, which was brought in for 2016 in a very, very rushed manner, not tested at all. The FOM were clearly not prepared, only got the kind of graphics up after a few cars had been knocked out. It was going okay in Q1 and it was decent in Q2, but clearly by Q3 it was an absolute disaster. The Ferraris were getting out of the car with 7 minutes to go, and we didn't even see any track action for the last 4 minutes of this session. It was a bit of a farce really, and generated a lot of bad publicity for Formula 1. But then we got the race and we got the news that it was being scrapped and everything looked positive. Now we've got the news that it's actually returning for the Bahrain Grand Prix. Now, yeah, a bit of a disaster really, but I could drone on for hours and hours about how bad the qualifying system is. But I'm going to be talking about a solution and my kind of general thoughts on the race weekend in general really, and what needs to change, and if indeed anything needs to change. And first of all, to be honest, it probably doesn't really. In my opinion, the race weekend format is fine. It's probably the best it's really ever been in terms of, 3 practice sessions, a qualifying system split into 3 parts, which makes each part interesting. It's not like back in the olden days when certain parts of qualifying would be the most interesting, when it was really only, meaningful to kind of watch the last 15 minutes, the last 5 minutes. When we've been through quite a lot of different systems, and it might depend on when you watched Formula 1 or when you first watched it. I mean, for me, this is the only system I've ever known, but of course I have gone back and watched previous qualifying systems. I know we had that aggregate system back in 2005, where they go over 2 qualifying sessions. We've had one-shot qualifying system I think before, and that's an idea I really like. So I've got a bit of a proposal really. I mean, in terms of practice. In terms of practice on a Friday, I mean, what's really wrong with it at the moment? I certainly do not agree with having races on a Saturday or a Friday to determine the grid. It's just kind of pointless in my opinion, and qualifying itself doesn't need to change in the fact that the positions of the race on, the starting positions of the Sunday race should always be determined by a qualifying system, and the qualifying system should always be about who can set the fastest lap. Now, that doesn't mean you can't tweak things within it. For example, this knockout system, which we've had since 2006, works really well, but of course it's always good to have a change. It's always good to have new ideas, keep it fresh, keep it exciting, and in my opinion this is a pretty good solution. And for Q1 and Q2 then you would have the knockout system, where of course you'd have 22 cars in Q1, and then say for I think 10 minutes, it doesn't even need to be as long as it currently is. I say 15 minutes. It is a good session length really. You'd have 15 minutes for all 22 cars to go out, set as many laps as they want on whatever tyres they want, and the top 16 cars would then progress into Q2. Q2 would be an even shorter session. It'd probably be about 12 minutes. And then you'd have the top 10 cars going through to Q3, and of course the knockouts would happen right at the end of the session. I didn't see a problem with that format already. It was very exciting all the way through. The problem I have with this new elimination system, yes, it's exciting, and yes, to be honest, it's not the worst thing if it was kept for Q1 or Q2. This idea is kind of open to the fact that it could be the knockout or could be the elimination, but my problem with the elimination is we don't get enough screen time for the likes of Manor, Sauber or Haas, well mainly Manor really, who are knocked out right at the start of the session, and we don't really see them again. The camera kind of misses stuff as well because it's focusing on the person who's just been knocked out, and then they're focusing on them, and then they'll cut to someone else, and then, someone else is eliminated, and they've completely missed that. Maybe, of course, FOM would learn with, as the races go on. Maybe teams would learn as well, so we don't get ridiculous situations like the Haas boys, setting laps after they've already been, disqualified because they've, not disqualified, after they've been eliminated because they haven't got the calculations right. I'm sure they would probably iron out those problems by, say, the Spanish Grand Prix, but, I'd definitely... have the knockout format. I think for Q1 and Q2, that's definitely the preferred format. And then for Q3 to kind of spice it up a bit, so we're not just going for the old same old format we've had since 2006. If race promoters are so keen for change, if F1 wants to shake up the grid on Sunday, which, let's be honest, is probably the most important things from a fan perspective, to really get a shaken up grid for Sunday. In terms of entertainment values, we want cars out of position, and the best way I think to do this without taking away anything from the sport, i.e. putting in like a race to determine the grid positions, which in my opinion is just wrong, or adding time on, which is even worse. Like adding time onto people, like Lewis Hamilton gets like 2/10 added onto his time, and then so on as the championship order goes down, you get time added onto your fastest lap. That's just ridiculous in my opinion. And I think what I would definitely do is have one-shot qualifying. This would basically work is you'd have the order in Q2, and then you'd actually reverse that, and that's the running order. So the 10 fastest car in Q2 would go out first, and they'd go out onto the track, and when they start their flying lap, you then release the next car out of the pits, and they go off. And once, of course, the person in 10th in Q2 has set their lap, then the person in 9th would have just been starting their lap, and it would just give screen time to each car. It would build up tension, and also, of course, they just have one shot in qualifying in Q3 at the moment. They kind of have 2 chances, maybe even 3 sometimes, but of course it would be kind of 1 chance and you're out. Maybe this would work for the whole field. I mean, people pointed out it wouldn't really work in terms of the casual fan might get a bit bored. It wouldn't really mean anything. It would, we might have, say, Hamilton out first and Rosberg, and then the session would kind of be done. I don't think one-shot qualifying would work for the whole grid, but I certainly think for, say, Q3 it would work really well. Maybe even Q1 would, one shot would work quite well. I'm not sure. You could have one shot for each session and still have the elimination system. Maybe, each driver would just get 1 lap and they can set it whenever they want, but they just get that 1 lap and they're done. Just like, of course, Formula E. Maybe they have a little boost at the turn up and they get 1 lap a boost. I'm not sure, but certainly I think qualifying, people say, oh, it doesn't need to change, and yes, I do agree with that, but I think it doesn't mean it doesn't have to change. I think if there is an interesting and exciting alternative, I should say, is probably the better word, but I think Formula 1 should really go for that. I think a one-shot Q3 would work really well, and it's mainly off the idea of what Formula E are currently doing. I think their qualifying is perfect because it really puts drivers under pressure, and it works because drivers are making mistakes. We've seen Sebastian Buemi making mistakes in the last two I think Formula E races, certainly in the last one, I think early on in the season as well. So it certainly throws up a really quite a few surprise results. Someone locks up, someone goes off the track, that's it, that's done. They're now in 10th place on the grid for tomorrow's race, and I think that would kind of satisfy the fans of the old system and fans of a bit of change as well. I think that'd be a good compromise and would improve the action on Saturday without having to add any kind of reverse grid races or anything like that. Sprint races to determine the grid on Sunday. But I don't know, maybe you guys want to see that. Maybe you guys do want to see a race on the Saturday. Maybe you don't want to see as much practice. I don't think I actually mentioned, but I would just keep practice the same. I think it's perfectly fine how it is. Or maybe we should reduce practice. Maybe we should just have 1 2-hour session on Friday. Maybe we should just have 2 1-hour sessions on the Friday and scrap FP3, which probably wouldn't be a bad idea, really. I mean, you should probably just have practice. Maybe just 1 practice on Friday would be good. I'm not quite sure. I'd be interested in hearing your guys' thoughts on this, but certainly for Sunday as well, leave Sunday well and truly alone. But certainly you could have, say, more promotional work as well to be done, of course. More autograph signatures, more kind of fun races. I mean, why not put all the F1 drivers in go-karts and race them around part of the track? I mean, maybe the logistics of that wouldn't quite work, but some more kind of interesting events and more kind of interaction, and integrate GP2, GP3 a lot better as well into the race weekend. Make it a much bigger part of the Formula 1 coverage. Make it all one broadcast, I'd say. Make it seamless between GP3, GP2 and F1. We've got a bit of GP3 action for you first, and then we're heading off to GP2, and then we'll show you a bit of Formula 1 as well in between, afterwards, and just kind of integrate them a lot better, because there's so much potential in GP2 and GP3, and they're great racing series, especially GP2, and if they were marketed better, they'd have a lot bigger audience. So there's a lot of potential for race weekends in general. and they were just kind of just a few thoughts for you guys to have a little think about. I'd be very, very interested in hearing your guys' opinions. I'm completely open. I'm certainly not set on my idea. That's why I was kind of going a bit back and forth on it, but I'll certainly have a think over these next few days, read a few of your comments, and then maybe we'll do kind of a response video to this with our kind of own kind of perfect race weekend. But I'd be quite interested in hearing your guys' opinions on qualifying and indeed on the whole race weekend in general. In my opinion, not too much needs to change, but I think it'd be good to kind of spice up practice or qualifying in terms of just giving it a bit of a change. Not though adding in anything like races that actually are no like points for qualifying either. Certainly very, very against that, because that's basically awarding points for the best car and not really the best driver, in my opinion. I mean, yes, of course, qualifying is about the car, is about the drivers, but really points should always be awarded only for the race and not for pole position, not for fastest lap, just for where you finish in the race. But anyway, I think that's pretty much it then. I won't, ramble on for much longer. But yeah, I'm interested in hearing your guys' opinions, because I've seen some varying opinions on the subject matter. Some people, I think, are really, really fond of having a race on the Saturday or Friday. But for me, I think we should keep the races just one race on the Sunday, please. Keep race how it is, but certainly shake up. I think practicing qualifying, that certainly wouldn't be a bad thing at all. Anyway, I hope you guys have enjoyed this video. Of course, let me know your thoughts on the race weekend format in general, and what would you like to see in the future implemented into the race weekend. Let me know down in the comment section below. Anyway, I hope you guys have a wonderful week. I'll see you guys next time. Goodbye.